the Guess My Number game that we created in the last couple of activities and enhance it a little bit. And so I've given you a number of tasks here to make this game a little bit more fun. The first one is to go back and practice using math.random to have the computer select a random number between 1 and 20. So the way to do this, pause the video right now and try it yourself. But the way that you do this is to do math.random. Remember, this gives you a decimal value between 0 and 1. Then we're going to multiply math.random times 20. So we get, this will give us a decimal value between 0 and 19.999. Then we want to do math.floor. So what this does is it takes the decimal value and it turns it into an integer value. So it would round 19.9 to 19. It will round everything down. So now we, this math.floor, math.random times 20 is going to give us integer values between 0 and 19. And so then all I need to do is add 1 to that, and I have a random integer between 1 and 20. Great. All right, that's number 1. Now number 2 is to create a variable for the number of turns. I'm going to call it numTurns that the user has taken outside of the while loop. And I'm going to set that variable to 0 because we're going to be incrementing that variable inside the while loop. So you do want to set that variable to an initial value. Now number 3 is to increment the turn counter variable each time the program asks the user for a number. So each time the program asks the user for a number, it'll do that within the while loop. So we want to increment numTurns inside of our while loop, okay? And the way that we're going to do that is by using numTurns++. Now this is a syntax you haven't seen before, but the plus plus operator just adds 1 to any number. So it'll take that number 0, and when we go into the while loop for the first time, it will add 1 to that number, making numTurns equal to 1. And then the next time we go into the while loop, it'll add another 1 to that number, making it 2, then 3, then 4, etc. And you can see this if when we do number 4, print out the turn counter variable in the prompt statement. We're going to print out here turn plus numTurns plus, and then can you guess my number? So now if I run the program, it says turn 1, can you guess my number? That's because we started numTurns at 0, we incremented it within the while loop, and so I'm going to guess the number. I'm going to guess the number 3. It's too low. And so now it's incremented again, and notice it says term 2, and that's because it's using the variable numTurns, which we incremented when we got back into that while loop. So now I'm going to guess 16, too high. I'm going to come down to 11, too low. 14, too high. 12, I got it right. Okay, so that's great. So what that does is we now have a random number, so it can be anything between 1 and 20. We're counting the turns, we're printing out the number of turns, and we're prompting the user until the user gets it right. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is create a win and loss condition. So what we're going to do here is create a Boolean variable that keeps track of whether the user has won or lost. So here we're going to create var has won and make it false because the user has not yet won. And then we're going to take a look here. In our while loop, we're going to add an AND statement. And we're going to make this AND condition the condition where the turn count variable is less than 3. So numTurns is less than 3. So basically what's going to happen here is if we have a case where if the user has not yet guessed the computer number and num_turns is still less than 3, then we are going to run the loop. And so that means that if the user gets it right within 3 turns, or the number of turns is greater than 3, the user's taken more than 3 turns to guess the number, then it'll break out of the loop. Okay. So now what we need to do is add an if statement to our statement here. Okay, so we're going to, actually, we have to add the if statement after our while loop. So first, if the user gets it right, I want to change has_1 to true. Because what I'm doing there is I'm saying, yeah, the user got the number. And so now when I'm running the code that comes after the while loop, that value is going to be equal to true instead of false. And so now I'm going to add an if block after my while loop to deal with that. And so I'm going to say if has_1 is equal to true, curly brackets, alert, congratulations, you won. Else if has_1 is equal to false, alert, sorry, better luck next time, frowny face. Okay, so now in this case, what's going to happen is if my user wins, right, it's going to print out congratulations, you won. And if my user does not win, it's going to kick my user out of the while loop. Has_1 will still be equal to false, and it's going to print sorry, better luck next time. Now, there are a number of ways that you could make this happen in your program. This is only one of them. If you have a better way to do it, feel free to do that as you're solving these problems. So now we're going to run the program. Let's just add those semicolons there. All right. Let's run the program, and let's see if we win or lose. So I'm going to guess the number 14. It's too high. Okay, so I'm going to guess the number 10. It's too low. So I know that it's in between 11 and 13. So turn 3, guess the number 12. I got it right. Okay, congratulations, I won. Now I'm going to run it and test to see whether the loss condition works. So I'm going to guess the number 12, too low, 13, too low, 14, too low, sorry, better luck next time. So it looks like my game works. And I can, if I wanted to change some of the conditions, I could do that. I can change this number here in my math random statement in order to make the number in a larger or smaller range. And then I can also change the number of turns that I'm allowing my user to take. And there are lots of other things you could do to make this game better, but those are just a few. So hopefully that helps you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask on the course site.